Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LPA webinar on Manage and Retain Your Talents. I'm Lindy Fourie, Managing Director of Sun Group Luxembourg, an Apex company, and I'm also the co-chair of the LPA HR Club. The HR Club is consisting of operational leads and HR professionals within the private equity industry in Luxembourg that basically discuss current trends, how we tackle that, and how to make Luxembourg an overall destination of choice. I'd like to introduce you to our guest speakers today. We have firstly Nicolo Poli, Head of Strategy and Planning for Europe and Chief of Staff to the European CEO, previously also the CEO of HSBC in Luxembourg. Geraldine Hassler, Head of the HR team in KPMG, who is kindly standing in for Michael Taubert today. Daphne Rousseau, Senior HR Business Partner at DLA Piper. There will be a Q&A. Please feel free to drop your questions during the session on any particular topics. We'll take care of the questions at the end. Daphne, if you'd like to kick us off.
You're on mute, Daphne.
Otherwise, it's not funny, isn't it? So, thank you. Since we are all back at the office, what I was saying is that we have been able to read great articles, analysis on the Great Resignation, mainly in the US, the search for meaning, purposes, the quiet quitting, and many new expressions. And it became a subject of discussion at work, at home, at school, and of course also on the table of our HR club at LPA. So if the term retention is quite familiar in the HR world, it becomes a bit less familiar when you are moving away from it. And this is why it's interesting to coming back to the original definition of this word. So I took a random definition from Google, and retention is the continued possession, use, or control of something. So today, if there is one certainty, it is that the employer do no longer owns its employee, and that this traditional approach is being challenged. So in this webinar, we will share our personal daily observations and debate on our different approaches. Thank you.
So what do we currently see from your point of view as market leaders in your businesses today on what is the current trends? Is it becoming harder to retain staff? And is there really a difference between junior employees and senior employees in a strategy point of view of how to retain?
So maybe I'll give that one a shot. So if I look at our overall statistics in terms of attrition and engagement in Luxembourg, they've remained relatively static over the last few years. There's a bit of up and down, but they haven't deteriorated dramatically despite the Great Resignation or quiet quitting. However, they're averages, and that's a bit like saying that a person's with their feet in the oven and head in the freezer is on average room temperature. If you look a layer below, you do indeed see differences. So the first one is that senior front office roles do exhibit higher attrition. But also risk and compliance roles are in high demand, and sustainability roles, very high demand. We've got one open position that I started recruiting for 2 weeks ago, and I have over 160 applicants of high quality. So when you look below the overall, it depends on the role and the sector. We're talking about Luxembourg, but if I look at geographies as well, across the globe, we are way higher than in Luxembourg. So Luxembourg is still okay. We have really hot spots in Asia. So there's a little bit around the role in the sector and also the geography. The other thing I would say, though, is that we have kept attrition levels and engagement pretty much static at the same levels, but we are offering more, I find. Not in terms of compensation. Compensation for us is like the base of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You need to offer it. You need to get to a certain level. But then people, once they have that, everyone looks for a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's human nature, by the way, so we shouldn't fight that. We offer other things like the culture of the firm. We emphasize that quite a lot around being diverse and inclusive, and we've done a lot on that. We offer a lot around purpose, and there are differentiating factors like ESG and what we do in the ESG space, sustainability, environmental. We're trying to be at the forefront of that. Flexible working, hybrid working, a growth strategy, there are other things that I think then people start looking at, and we're trying to offer more and more of this, just to sort of stay in a relatively static position in terms of attrition and engagement. So it is becoming more challenging, but it's not yet beyond the realm of control.
Maybe from a law firm perspective, if I can add some aspect, we observed that since summer 2022, it is with the job market that is a bit going down. So we have less people on the job market looking for changing of their position. So it could be also explained by a local situation due to Luxembourg, because even if you said, Nicolo, that we are offering a lot of very interesting aspects in Luxembourg, it is also true that we have to face big challenges in Luxembourg with the real estate prices that are very high, the traffic on the roads, and also the restricting conditions about the teleworking. This is clearly a challenge that we are now facing on top of the rest, because the rest is now that people have multiple expectations about their career. You cannot offer only one way career. You have to build the career with the employee. In the past, it was maybe a bit more straightforward. One way to do a career, the person is loyal, so it's not easy, but it was taking less time than today. So I would say that it is a constant reflection that we are facing now, and retention is clearly on the table of the constant analysis we are doing with the leadership.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nicolo. Daphne, I think that I'm very aligned. So I will also speak around, Daphne, you were talking about the law firm. So the Big Four world, I would say, where are the people? So that's definitely, I think, from whatever the sector. So I think that you can discuss with many clients, but also outside of the finance or the law firm, if we're looking on the Horeca and so on. We are still wondering where are the people, because we all are facing with some recruitment, and I think that we all try to find a great recipe to attract the people and to put less pressure on the attraction of the recruitment. We need to retain the people, and this is really where at the beginning and the retention. And as you said, retention is multiple. We have seen since now that the COVID has learned a lot of things. And this is a new reality where the opportunity exists to fundamentally reshape the how and why we are doing things, and where our people are challenging also ourselves, and where the purpose and the flexibility are clearly key. And we have to jungle with the demands for our clients to deliver properly in due time, and to offer the flexibility and all other elements to keep the talents. And where here in Luxembourg, I still see that the market is very dynamic for job seekers and so on. So we need really to have a clear employee value proposition, and to have a continuous and transparent communication with our people to make sure that we are all going in the same direction.
I agree overall. I think that currently the demand is very high in Luxembourg from a service provider point of view. We've had quite a lot of new entries into the market, of US players opening their own offices here. But I see it more on the side of entry-level positions or middle management positions becoming more in high in demand, as that skill set is currently not available enough in the market in Luxembourg. And also because the flexibility through COVID of working from home or working from your vacation jurisdiction of choice, some people have higher requirements as they enter the job market as well. So we can easily find somebody in Spain that speaks German, for example, but they would like to live in Spain and not in Luxembourg. So that's always the drive, is how do you make Luxembourg more interesting, and how do you keep the staff in Luxembourg as a jurisdiction? Do you have any tips or tricks on how to motivate your talents or grow your talents locally in-house that you could probably share with the audience as well?
maybe we implemented something this year with a more individual career support, with a meeting with
I think we've lost
the head of operations and sorry.
I'm afraid may have lost you, Daphne. Oh, you're back.
Oh, sorry. So if I come back, I hope you hear the beginning of my sentence. So the fact is that we are suggesting now to have an approach which is a transversal approach with head of operations, but also responsible of HR, to provide a more transversal support to the candidate with the career track that could be multiple again. So there is not only one way. There is a structure for sure, but there are different ways to grow up and to fulfill the different expectations, because this is really the key that we are facing today, is the fact that people are changing also of expectations during their own career. They are starting with some ambition, and then it could change, it could evolve, and we have to be ready to support them at different levels. So it was maybe a little tips from my side.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add to that. I mean, I think I'll take one step back in terms of motivating talent. I think you've got to recruit the right people first off, and that's important that we find who fits in the organization. And this isn't about diversity and inclusion. This is, you know, an organization has a culture. It has a certain set of values and beliefs, and they will differ from one to the other. And it's not like one is right or one is wrong. But it's important to understand the type of person that succeeds in your organization. I'll give a very, very clear example. You know, we are a collegiate collaborative firm at HSBC. There are some people absolutely out there that are driven and motivated by other things. Front office staff that want to go out and say, look, I talked to the clients, I sold them products, I got the revenue, I want a share of that revenue. I want the money, right? I went out, I got the deal, I got the business, and I deserve that money. We don't operate like that. Right? Our structure is not like that. Our whole culture is not like that. It's a teamwork. It's a team effort. We believe in the brand. We believe that we do things together. And so you get a salary and you'll get a variable pay. You will not get a percentage of the revenue that you bring into HSBC. So people that are motivated by that money, and there are many out there, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but they will not ever fit into our organization. And that will always be a very challenging fit. And it'll be very hard ever to make them happy. They could be extremely talented. They could be the best person out there, but they will never fit into an HSBC. And we need to recognize that. And I think it's good and important to recognize that up front. So who fits in, who's going to succeed at this firm? And then I think to what Daphne said, it changes over time. You know, it's about understanding what people want in different phases. So when you're young, and I'm going to generalize terribly here, but maybe you want career opportunities, you want international travel, you want growth, you want, you know, to go and explore the world. Paternity leave is not that important, but maybe when you get into your 30s, paternity leave is more important. Stability, the ability to grow within a certain geography. So the size and the options that are there. And then perhaps as you go further on, it's more about purpose. It's giving back to the world. It's about doing good. It's about ESG. It's about the environment. It's about other things. It changes. And so it's almost like a menu of options. And so I'm going to use a really silly example, but you know, I'm Italian. So if we have an Italian restaurant, we make Italian food, we have Italian menu. If you're looking for sushi and you come to, you know, the Italian restaurant, you're going to be disappointed because we just don't offer that. We have fish, we have rice, we have different things, but we don't have what you want. So that's about getting the right people in the door. And then when you have the right people in the door, people that were looking for Italian food, then it's about that menu of options, right? And being able to give them different things, different times that they come, but also understanding that and matching it. So I think that's it. And it's really understanding what people are looking for and what you can give them. And it's around the culture, the purpose, and things beyond just compensation and salary, because I think that's really the basic level. It's what you can do beyond that.
If I can share the experience from KPMG, we have just conducted the annual Global People Survey that assesses the engagement, and what it has been seen is that, like you said, after the COVID and with many generations in a firm, we have seen quite a shift in terms of motivation drivers. We have categorized them and we have worked on them, on 5 of them. That depending on the people, some may be on the top 3, on the others, but really we have seen that. The first is the mobility. I think that we have all enjoyed the time at home, or it depends, but less time in traffic and having more qualitative time that our people are requesting. So on our side, we have put some flex office that you may have seen in the press, that really we have seen less absenteeism, much more people are high performing on that and really enjoying to still being in a social environment at the employer side, but really reducing the time on the traffic and to better manage private and professional life. So first is about mobility. The second one is about working in a firm, in a Big Four. It's really about learning and growing. That has been quite key. So we have reinforced our learning offer, and then we have also decided to relaunch our training offsite, out of the office, locally, but sometimes also internationally. The third one is, like just you said, Nicola, it's about the purpose, really make sure that what we are doing really matters. So it has challenged us to conduct different business transformation projects where we have no better also acknowledging the fact that the need to work on the alliance or on outsourcing stuff, just to really do the work that matters. The fourth one is about the well-being. Well-being has been really a top priority for our people, where we have been working on that, and especially in the mental health, because what we have been through, it's really unprecedented, and it had an impact on our people, sometimes invisible. And so we need also to engage the discussions with our people to make sure that they release on that and they are on the good fit to work in the best conditions. The reward and the benefits, although it's not the primary, and I think that you cannot find any surveys that people are staying in a firm only for compensation. However, it has been quite a subject where we need to make sure that it's not only salaries, but it has different rewards that fits with your needs and with your time in your career and in your personal life, that the employer can make it easy. And above all, the icing on the cake, something that we have been really working on, is having open, timely, and transparent communication. Our people, we thought that being only giving some good vibes and good news was great, but our people mentioned also that they want also to have the vulnerability, and that we explain why we can't do things, what's going on when there are things that are not that good, that we explain that. And this is really not only the communication, the what, but the why also. And this is, we may have underestimated the importance of communication, especially if we are still working on the hybrid working model, is to stay close to your people, communicate continuously, and listen to them before communicating. It's on the two-way side. So if I may share this experience.
I think it's quite good that you do an annual survey to actually check what the employees' feedback is as well. I agree completely on that. It's more about the culture, the environment, the open transparency of communication. It's better to know in advance of what somebody's expectations are, so that you can also do their career planning with them. But I'm also like Nicolo. I believe that you shouldn't be rewarded. For me, it's about open architecture, being able to participate, taking some of the responsibility. And being part of the company strategy. No matter what level you're on, you should be able to understand and participate, so that you find that cultural match. Because we do have people who leave and then after 4 or 5 months wants to come back. And I think you probably see that in the audit firms and the law firms as well.
And just to come back on that, I don't know if there is a phenomenon that you may have seen, but we had some people who left quite recently KPMG for going to the competition and to earn more. And guess what? We have now quite an impressive number of people who are coming back in a very short time period of time, where it was a fact, an effect that we had that in the past, but not so rapidly. So people left for certain reasons, then realized maybe that it was not the good fit, or the grass is not greener on the other side, and then came back. So it's also part of the retention. So when people are leaving the firm, you need really to keep a good alumni experience, because these people either maybe a good connector on the business side, but also maybe come back like a boomerang. And this is an effect that we have seen, that we have an increase of people coming back, and where we are very happy. And it gives also a message to the people who have stayed and may considering to look for something else, that they have seen some experiences where people may have a different view on that. So it's good also in terms of internal messages.
Yeah, I think that is a critical part of it. As you should always, clearly say, I'm happy for people to have new experiences, to try different things, but the door is always open to come back. I think that perfectly fits into who do we like to retain. What, from an employer's point of view, is what qualities are we looking for employees that we would go the extra mile to retain? Is it more the cultural fit, and do we have to keep them all?
So I'll take a stab at that. I think we definitely don't need to retain everyone, and it goes back to the fit for the company and the role. And actually, often part of a good retention strategy is ensuring that you don't retain the ones that don't fit for whatever reason. And there are two different types. They can either be I'm generalizing, but you can either get the superstar that is out there for me, and that's not the culture of the organization. And then, because they're bringing in financial results, you let them get away with behavior that you wouldn't tolerate otherwise. And that sends really poor examples. So we've got to be consistent on who we are, our values, and our core set. Because I think we've been talking a lot about how the workplace has changed. I saw an interesting clip recently, and I liked it. And I'll put myself at a certain age, so I'm going to put myself in the middle of this category. They said our parents worked for sustenance, essentially, right? They worked to put food on the table. We, or people of my generation, we work more for a standard of life, which is to go and travel the world or to have a bigger house or something of the sort. And then the younger people coming in, they work more for quality of life. And the quality of life, like people say, is about, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? And where are you going? And there's many more questions around all of this. And so I think it's important when you have that, and it's about the quality of life, it's about the culture and the purpose of an organization, it becomes increasingly important to be true to that. So a retention strategy is also about not retaining the people that you don't want, right? Whether those are the top performers that you let get away with murder because they're bringing in the money, you've got to manage them out, honestly. And also the bottom performers, if you're showing people that, we're a nice firm, we don't get rid of anyone, and you can just coast along and get paid the same salary, but do, a tenth of the work, that's the wrong message as well. And that will backfire on you. And the people that love the firm and that are talented, they will leave you because you've got to remain true to a certain core. So I think the question was, do you retain all people at all costs? The answer is absolutely not. It needs to be a differentiated strategy. In my view, it's got to be about your values and your behaviors, and then it's also got to be about meritocracy. There has to be an element of both of those. So it's not just one or the other.
I would maybe
fully agree.
Yeah, but like you, Geraldine, I fully agree too. And I would jump on the recruitment aspect, because if we invest so much energy, people, and time in the recruitment, it's not to have a failure in the selection. And therefore, we also created at DLA Piper a hiring committee that is composed by partners, by head of operation, by HR team. And on a weekly basis, we are reviewing pre-screened CVs for all positions. So for lawyers, but also for accountant, marketing, etc. And it is a lot of time that we are allocated to this process, but it also allows us to be all aligned that we are consistent in the people we are hiring, the people that are joining us, and as you said, Nicolo, to be also with the same values at the end, because this is something that is creating a lot of negative impact. Someone that is not quitting, but that is not committed, and worst, that is not working for us, but against us at the end, because it's going very quickly when someone has a bad intention, unfortunately. So I fully agree that we have to make a very good job at the beginning to avoid having to answer to that question at the end. Geraldine.
So yeah, I think everything has been said. In a nutshell, I would say we need to really have an alignment between what we say and what we do. So if we say our people are the main assets, that we dedicate a lot of time to recruit, to train, to coach them on the field, we need also there is a big importance on manage the underperformance. And this is also to have this conversation with the person and to take sometimes some decisions, because by putting the people aside is not respectful for the person who is underperformance for various reasons, but also for the people who are besides them, who are doing the extra mile, and they do see that without any actions from the employer. So retention is also the fairness among the people, the equity, and also better managing the underperformance. And where also we need, as a firm, manage also the cost diligently, and this is go through that. So if we would like to have a high performance culture, it goes through that. So my response to your questions, Lindy, it's we need to have a selective retention.
That's a nice way of putting it. And I think it is a balanced approach. I think proactively, we need to be involved from taking the candidates through the recruitment all the way through and making sure they fit, and actually communicating and making sure that all employees are treated equally. I think if we apply a special treatment for one at the end, just because they say they're leaving, that we sometimes throw the rest of the team out of balance in where they feel that they fit into the association. And this might lead to quiet quitting from some of your top performers. I think perhaps, Stephanie, if you could explain what quiet quitting is, and if any of us have really seen this in the marketplace as well.
Yes, I had a definition, but I do not have it in front of me. But at the end, quiet quitting is someone who is not resigning, but who is not committed anymore, who is not engaged anymore. So someone who is losing purposes, meaning, and this is on the soft way, and on the toughest way, it is also someone who is sharing bad vibes, let's say, and this is worse than resignation sometimes. And this is something we have observed on the market all over the world. Is not Luxembourg specific, but that we might have people who are not very interested anymore at their job. They are not feeling part of the company. They are not feeling linked to other. It could be also due to teleworking. It could be because of personal changes, etc. But at the end, this is an effect we have to be very very attentive to.
Yeah, the quiet resigning is, I think it's maybe a new effect. Now we are discussing about that as the people who are disengaged. So the HR department may not be probably the right people to identify these persons, because we may not have the tools. So what is very important is really to have some people on the ground, on the field, to have some multiplicators, and to stay close to the people and to understand the root cause about why is this person currently disengaged and not committing enough, and to have the discussions. Now it's very hard really to get and to measure that, to identify properly. But like we said, it's worse than leaving, than resigning, and more expensive for the firm, and not good for the person, neither in the team around it.
Yeah, so I think before getting on to quiet quitting, I think, Linda, you mentioned something around reactive retention as a concept or as a construct, and it's not something we touched upon, but I think reactive retention has its place, but should not be overused as a tool. So, an example being if one of our people gets poached or gets headhunted, and then is given an offer, a bit out of the blue. They weren't necessarily looking, they weren't necessarily unhappy, but all of a sudden someone's offering them 30% more to do a similar role. I think that is when reactive retention has its place. You can come in and try to decide whether you want to match or not, or retain, or really try to understand if it's just about comp or what that issue is. But it shouldn't be overused, because then you get a culture of, well, they're not going to give you a raise unless you threaten to quit or you go find a job, and that's even worse. That becomes damaging. So I think reactive retention is something you mentioned and should be used lightly or cautiously, but does have its place. I think more than a reactive retention, what we try and do on compensation, as we were mentioning, and it's got to remain within the right ranges. Luxembourg is relatively well off in that you've got the indexation and you get annual increases. Many other countries don't have this. So what can often happen is that employees that have been in a firm a long time, their salaries and their overall comp goes below market standards. So if they were to leave, then they would go up to market standards. So one thing I would recommend instead of the reactive retention is proactively looking at who is less than 10% for any given role, any given tenure at your salary base. And what we do is we do proactive salary increases to keep them at the benchmark. And I think that's probably a better way of doing this. So sorry, that was a bit of an aside, but on quiet quitting, I think honestly we've all had a bit of a tough period, right? And it's good to recognize this. COVID has not been the easiest. We've been shut away with, often I have 3 kids. I was the PE teacher, and we're trying to teach them French, and I don't speak great French, etc. It's been difficult for 2 years. Then COVID opens up and it magically disappears. And everything comes back. We want to go traveling. We want to see this. The kids want to go here, and then work comes back. We're traveling again. We're going to go see clients and more meetings, and it's been a difficult year, right? And then on top of that, you get wonderful things like inflation, recession, wars, etc. It's been a very difficult 2022. So I think the first bit or part for me around the quiet quitting is to show a bit of empathy and understanding as to what is actually going on, and what is going on in their life. Because one of the first signs, is we know this, is of stress. When people are stressed out, and they've been under a lot of stress for a long period of time, they're no longer performing at certain levels. So it's important to identify and understand what's going on there. Is it a willful, or is it that we're talking about somebody's completely stressed out, close to burnout? Because your approach is going to be entirely different. If you think that you've got employees that are close to burnout and this is the reason that they're just not performing as well as they could, that's one thing. If they're just being cynical and negative, etc., then that's a different kind of conversation to have. But I think all of this starts with conversation and understanding what's going on. And one of the examples we had was, someone had been doing a role for 3 years, and they were supposed to or expected to be doing it for sort of 18 months, and they were just a bit tired of the repetitive nature of that role. So the easy thing was just to switch them out into a new role, find them a different role in operations as part of a bit of a training. I think in the pre-COVID, this may not have happened because you would have seen them and we would have had more rotations. But during COVID, we kind of all got a bit distanced at times, and so we may not have identified that as quickly as we could have. So quiet quitting is a phenomenon. It is out there, but I think the step one is diagnostic and really trying to understand what is going on, and then before deciding on what needs to be done about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think overall, the one point you said about reactive is also the proactive part of where, on an annual basis, we tend to look at what the benchmark is and try to pull people into the right brackets to make sure that stays in place. But as you mentioned, for the quiet quitting effect, people's participation, being distant, the first thing I always say is there something else in the company you would like to do? Is that more the fact that because you're bored or you're not interested, or you just have a motivation that you haven't yet find what your passion is. I'm a person that for the first couple of years of my life, every 2 years I changed role. And now my big joke is nobody knows my job description because I change what I do every 6 months. And I don't let other people change it for me. I change it myself. So I think that's an important part that you also have to learn that during COVID, some people lost kind of that automatic voice where they were speaking up for themselves. People have become a little bit more quiet and disassociated sometimes from their teams. And you have to bring back that natural nature in them to interact, to stick up for themselves, and actually just to participate in the company. Because for me, work is always the same, no matter where you go. It is the people and the culture that will keep you there. So perhaps we've touched upon a COVID. So perhaps then, if I can ask the next question. So currently, there is quite a large demand for employees in Luxembourg. There's not a large talent pool. What is your opinion, outsourcing versus local hiring? And what topics do you feel is important that Luxembourg retains?
So probably I can. You can go.
I will be short on this one. I have a figure. We have 21 different nationalities at DLA, and we are almost 100 people. And if the first nationality is French, the second nationality is Spanish. So I think it answered the questions directly now. So Spanish and Belgian with a difference of 1 or 2. But so it's clear then that Luxembourg market is too small for the ambition of Luxembourg, and obviously it's a great opportunity in Luxembourg to welcome different nationalities. Everybody in the street, more or less everybody in the street speak English, so it's easier to integrate yourself here. It's a very dynamic politic to onboard families also. We have different schools, we have a very international culture, and even to vote now, it will be open to foreigners. So I think it's a great gesture that is showing the right direction to this. From a more law firm perspective, obviously, law are written in French, so it limits a bit the exercise, but we are agile also, and people are very motivated to learn and to structure themselves to succeed in this area. So we are very convinced that we have to continue open the doors.
Thank you, Daphne. So I continue. 73 nationalities at KPMG. We still have also a stronger Spanish community, but not in the top 3. So local hiring, yes, we continue in hiring people. I think because we need to feed our pyramid and so on. However, the equation is different. So outsourcing, definitely. We need to have different strategy on the outsourcing. That's something that we are currently doing more and more, and especially for our audit practice. But what we have taken as an opportunity after the COVID, due to the fact that people are looking for more flexibility, we do have this social security and tax threshold that puts a limit in terms of working from abroad for certain people that would require for more flexibility and mobility on that. But also with the new generation, we have now been working more and more with our people as a freelancer. So it means that we are using people with different skills for projects, also from a time period of the year where they can reconcile other projects, other clients, and we are collaborating with them on this. And we do have some people who have decided to shift from an employee side to traditional employee and to be a freelancer. That's something where we have seen quite a good benefits of it. It gives us much more agility also on how we do the business, and especially for the people who have been working with us and now considering to manage their career differently. So they know us, they know our clients, but they are definitely more mobile on that. We should not forget also that when we say 73 nationalities, so there are some part of them who are non-EU citizen, and unfortunately Luxembourg is still quite too slow, or to the admin process for the immigration is still too heavy compared to other countries, and we are losing candidates, great candidates. For other countries, they are more flexible and more on that. So it's also an issue. And like you said, Daphne, at the beginning of this discussion, the accommodation and the cost of living in Luxembourg is becoming an issue. And especially we're talking about Spanish. We did not have so much difficulties to find people in Spain. And now it has been becoming quite long discussions where they do not see anymore the incentive to come to Luxembourg, bring the family. The difference is not that much more attractive. So I think that the employer definitely needs to find some ways, but I think that the government needs also to take some actions to make sure that Luxembourg continues to be attractive and competitive compared to other countries. They are taking great things to after this COVID. So it's on the both sides.
So I agree with everything that's said. I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective, perhaps, just as a global bank in terms of the offshoring and the local. So we have about 350 people locally. We have more than that in offshore centers working just for Luxembourg. We offshore between 50 to 60% of our work, of our activity, in places like Krakow, but also in Colombo and Sri Lanka, Philippines, India, etc. And the way we look at that is simply around it's around the activity and the task. And if it can be offshored, we will, also because we gain benefits from that, because we have multiple sites around Europe, so we actually gain scale. So what that means is that a lot of what is left in Luxembourg is clearly more senior in terms of our roles, and it's a decision makers and or risk/compliance focused on the whole, or front office, talking to clients. So that's a little bit what we have left here. And then in terms of finding local talent, Luxembourg is very diverse. So I'm not sure what local means. I guess Belgium and France and Germany and obviously Luxembourg, but they're I think 20% Portuguese here, and we have lots of Italians, and so I'm not sure what local means, but we have loads of nationalities. Do we struggle? I think the other question, or the question might be a bit what Geraldine was saying at the end. Do we struggle to bring people from other offices to Luxembourg? And I think the answer is partially, because it's not that well known to a lot of people. Luxembourg is a bit of a, where is it on a map? What does it do? Let me go take a look and understand a bit about it. The brand of Luxembourg is still 20 years in the past around, a sleepy sort of town that's doing private banking, but, that couldn't be further from the truth now. So when people if they're interested enough and they start to explore, then they become really interested. And then I think the only hurdle or obstacle becomes, if you wanted to, not so much for a 3-year stint, but if you thought really about living here with your family, it's the real estate. It's really hard to have the kind of lifestyle that you would imagine in Luxembourg. And so then you got to think about living in France or Belgium or Germany, and then that changes the whole proposition, because you have to think of commutes and languages and schools, and that becomes the challenge. So overall, to bring people for 3 to 5 years, I don't think is an issue. But for people to stay here for the long term, I find that is more challenging, and that is possibly where we get we have some of the problems, because you do get quite a bit of turnover, and the one thing the staff does complain is that they see they don't have that stability sometimes at the top of the organization. So I don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully I've painted a little bit some of the challenges we do face.
I think that's a good view. I think overall, hiring from what is in the market, or which is applying directly for Luxembourg positions, is becoming harder, especially because of the middle to senior experience level that we require, but also that we haven't had that feed from the local universities or the universities next door. We do hire quite a bit from our other offices to come over. So we have quite a bit of South Africans in Mauritius that worked in our offices there. And we do go through this immigration process with them. So we put a lot of time and effort to get them in. Now, also with Apex, we have launched the JUMP program, which facilitates basically moving to different jurisdictions every 6 months, every 2 years. Especially when you're young, I think this is quite appealing for people to see more of the world. And overall, what the next years think would come would really impact how we can do that. I think Luxembourg can still do more on housing, but if you're a family, this is a great place. It's very central located. It's very safe and stable. So I think really the desire to live in Luxembourg is definitely there, but there is some things that we could, from an infrastructure point, put in place.
And I might just add one thing, which is hybrid working is a bit of a double-edged sword for Luxembourg. So, you know, as a firm, we do hybrid working all the time. We promote it. Our global CEO has said, you know, we trusted you during COVID. Why would we stop trusting you afterwards? It all worked fine. You know, you can work from wherever you want. My role is London-based. I live in Luxembourg. You know, I've got teams in Paris and Dusseldorf. So, as an example for hybrid working, the challenge for Lux is obviously with the frontalier, because if you live in France and you work in Luxembourg, you're limited to the number of days. So we have actually had staff saying, you know what, I'd like to go work for HSBC France because I can work from home, even though I'm in Metz or whatever. But for Luxembourg, I have to commute. I have to come in and drive the car or take the train. But if I worked for Paris, I could do, you know, just a few days a week. So that has caused a bit of not much, but that's a bit of an additional thing to take into consideration here.
Yeah, and that might increase in the next couple of years. Do any of you perhaps have some statistics on why people would leave your organization, or some key thoughts on that?
I did the exercise, and I have a 60-40. 60% was for personal reasons, change of career, country relocation, change of life, and 40% to go to a competitor. I think it's very interesting, such kind of figures, and very new trend also to understand from this, and key message for us.
I think that's a critical message, because that is changing. Where previously people always left for competitors, now you can see it's more personal in nature on how they've taken their approach.
Yeah, most of ours is around lifestyle often. So even if they do go to a competitor, it's not always or necessarily to get, you know, a greater salary. It's because they found the work easier. Meaning we're in a global matrixed organization. It is complex sometimes to get things done. And so we have had people just leave because they wanted a simpler, easier life. We have had people also leave for a lot of them for geographical reasons, especially in Luxembourg. You know, they've moved back to wherever they wanted to go. They've done their stint here, and then they go elsewhere, or because they got promoted and now they wanted to do a global role or a regional role, and they're just not that located in Luxembourg. But I think fewer and fewer people are just moving for money.
So that probably brings us into a very good topic. So why have you stayed with your company? What has made you feel welcome in your entity, and have been there with how many years?
I stayed for money. No, I'm just kidding. I had to contradict myself. No, I've been HSBC 11 years, and I joined what's called an international manager program, where I'm a bit of a hired gun. Would be the terminology. So they give me different postings, and I go to different places and I do different things. And in the 11 years that I've been here, this is my 6th role. And the longest one I did was CEO of HSBC, which was for 3 years. But normally every 2 or so years, I'm changing roles or trying to do something different. And I love that. And there are few places where I could get such a global challenge as what I get here. You know, what I look at is turnarounds or growth stories, or, you know, strategic insight, or just some kind of transformational plan. That's really what's kept me for so long. I think what's keeping me beyond this now is a lot of the flexibility they offer in my job role. I think, Lindy, you mentioned you stopped giving yourself job titles. mine used to be simple. It was CEO of HSBC Luxembourg. Now it's chief of staff, head of strategy planning, transformation. I've got ESG as well. And I just feel like it's a bit, I wanted to do ESG. I wanted to be in charge of ESG for Europe. I want to implement it. I want to, they said, fine, we need someone to do that. So go ahead. So now I've got a little team and we're looking at that, and that's purpose driven. And I really think that a bank like ours, 3 trillion balance sheet, we can make a huge difference in sustainable finance. It's not like the 2008 crisis where we were the bad people. I think we can be the good people and help transition economies and transition companies and really do our share. So I feel that I've got this opportunity to also, inject real purpose into what I'm doing. So for all these reasons, I've stayed here 11 years, and it's been a good 11 years.
From my side, I just joined DLA Piper 1 year ago, so it's not the same story as Nicola. But why did I join a law firm? And before I was in the banking sector for 15 years. It's because I joined a community of leaders, and it was also a proposal of project. And the project is really the keyword today, because after almost 12 months there, I still have the same energy. I felt and I feel still listened. I am part of the game, and this is not because of the decisions. This is not because of only actions. It's also because I'm close to people. I have the possibility to speak to them, to listen to them, and because we are on a growth strategy, we also have the possibility to make decisions that will have a real impact on the people. So this is something that is it is creating a lot of energy to and to give me also the smile in the morning. Sometimes it's a bit a tough day, but at the end, being part of a project is something that is without an ending date. This is something that you are not expecting that it will be finished. Now you expect that something new will happen, and that the decision you have made will have the right results, etc., etc. So people is clearly my number one why I joined, and project is also why I'm waking up the morning.
So on my side, just if you can repeat the question, I don't know what happened, but I saw you speaking, but I lost the sound. So I just
we were just using our own personal experiences to basically say, why have we stayed with our company so long? So perhaps before you go, I can go as well. I've been 7 years with my group. And like I said before, I love the opportunity to participate. If I volunteer, I'm heard, I'm valued, and I really enjoy the people. For me, the work is the same everywhere. And then we'll go together through a process, so that interactively and having that openness to participate. So I'm like Nicolo, I have a lot of hats on. But that's how I enjoy it. I like to be actively involved in every part. I don't want to be sitting in a back room somewhere. I want to participate as much as I can and take other people with me. So Geraldine, why have you stayed with KPMG?
Yeah, so first I started I'm a Big Four baby. I started my career with a competitor, and I always said I will never leave a Big Four for another Big Four. And guess what? I did it. So we need to pay attention sometimes to our beliefs. So I had a great experience over there. I did not have any specific reasons to leave, but and I think that what made me change is the project, like Daphne said, it's the job content, the job opportunity to get this job, leading the people function, to build really a people functions, to make sure that we achieve the business strategy that KPMG has. We were less mature than the Big Four that I left. So the experience that I gained during my 10 years with my first employer really was a key factor, a great help. And that's why I'm successful on that. So it's always, when you are leaving a firm, it's not because you are dissatisfied with the firm. It's just that you want to try something else, or you have job content or job opportunity. And so I think it's quite important also as an employer to understand that. I remember a staff member saying, okay, I'm leaving. Why? Because you have been so happy. I said, what is your car? And I said, this is a BMW, but what was your before? It was an Audi. So were you dissatisfied with the Audi? And I said, no, I wanted to try another one. But it's the same thing. So why? It's not easy every day. And I think that we all acknowledge that in our day-to-day. We may have sometimes reasons to leave and to say, okay, I'm going now to change. But after, it's really what are your priorities, what your motivation drivers, and then the other people. I think that one of the key factors that retain our people, and myself, including myself, is the team, is the people that I work with, that I work for. It's definitely this. And as soon as I'm not aligned anymore with the values or the culture or the way we are doing things, that it may not be anymore the place where I should continue, but for the moment it's not the case. So this is what's really important, what is such a really my values and the job content. And to be passionate, I think to have fun, this is something also very important, is to have the fun in what you do. Lindy,
we may have lost Lindy.
Frozen. Yeah.
Oh no, our moderator is gone. Okay. Well, look, I think there was one last question, which was, what are we looking forward to for next year, or what does next year have in store? And maybe I'll give it a shot. And I think we're almost out of time. But so I think the honest answer is unfortunate, which is 2023 is likely to be a bit of a tough year. We're all going to maybe be and feel a little bit poorer than in 2022. The reason being that asset prices for those that are lucky enough to own assets are clearly down, and inflation is up. Inflation is up from commodities, oil and gas, and everyone's doing the right thing, which is raising interest rates and trying to raise salaries, but it'll never be as much as inflation, because otherwise we'd just be stoking inflation in different parts and everything that required people. And so actually what we have to do is keep that a bit below inflation. The good news, if you like, is that this year it should flatten off. Oil and gas prices have peaked in many respects, or they should not increase anywhere near as much as they did in the past. And so the hope is that oil, gas, commodities like that should start to flatten off. That would mean that inflation comes down. On the other side, we're paying everyone a little bit more, so that inflation is coming up. But again, it'll be lower than it was in 22. And so going into 24, I think and I hope we'll start seeing more of a normal cycle, and then asset prices and everything else will go up, and real salaries should start going up as well. The other good news is, from what I've read, it looks like nuclear war is less likely, which is always a positive, something we should applaud. And there are no COVID lockdowns planned either. So hopefully we'll all be free to go around our ways and our travels. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it will be a tough 23. Lindy, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out there. Evie, did we have any questions? Or shall we end the
No
session?
questions so far, but I think that's the right point. If someone has questions, that's the time. So drop in the Q&A.
So I think the year ahead would probably be quite difficult for all of us, but if we have a proactive approach on retention and keep being ourselves, I think our companies will strive, and so would we. Okay, I think we had 2 minutes left for our webinar allocated. Evie, if there's any questions.
I don't see something so far. I think you are very good, very clear to everything.
I think we covered all the topics. I think we had
Exactly.
great speakers. I think if there's any questions, and if you have interest in the HR Club or any LPA events coming up, do feel free to let us know, or to join the association from that point of view. Otherwise, we'll talk to you probably at the next time. Thank you very much, Daphne, Geraldine, Nicola, Evie, and Johan for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank
and congrats for the great time management. So it's
On time.
impressive. So, but thank you for the panelists, and I hope that it was quite useful and enriching. And I think that we all try to do our best in our company to attract and retain the people. And if you have the magic recipe, share among the group.
Send it now, exactly.
Good afternoon. See you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.